Thanks for checking out this video. For a full list of materials used in this project, head down to the description below and click on Show More. The first step that I'm going to take in making my Splendor Ring is to create the base here on the back that my 3mm crystals will sit on. And this base here will also serve as the starting point for the bezel that I'm putting around my Rivoli. So we'll go ahead and start on that part of my ring here. I have this in the blue color, and then I am wearing this lovely color. This is a mauve and topaz version of this ring. And so we'll also have the colors of this listed down below too, if you're interested in this colorway. So to get started on this section, you're going to pick up a stop bead. So I have just one of my 11/0 silver beads on, and I'm going to go ahead and just use that stop bead in the project. I don't need a lot of tail thread since I'm just going to use this to tie off my thread later. I'm not going to actually have to add a needle to this, so it can just be 3 inches or so, and that's plenty. I'm going to work this section here in a right angle weave. I'm going to need 6 of my silver beads, and if I'm including my stop bead in that, I will need to pick up an additional 5 beads. So I have a total of 6. So I've got my 6 silver beads on here. And then I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15/0s. And this is going to round out that right angle weave section here. If you're familiar with right angle weave, you're going to make a little series of boxes, and each side of my box is going to have 2 beads. So I have 2 beads, 2 silver beads on this side of my box, 2 silver beads on this side, another 2 silver beads here on the third side, and then the fourth side here is going to be 2 of my 15/0s. So the 15/0 side here is going to be a different color and a different size. I'm going to pass through all of those beads again, and I'm passing through those 15s now. I'm going to pass through the next 2 seed beads. So those will be 2 of my silver beads. And now I'm going to add another little section of my right angle weave. So I'm going to pick up another 2 of my 11/0s for the top of my square here, the second side of my square. And then another 2 seed beads, another 2 of my silvers for the third side. You can see here that I'm sharing this side here. So I've got my 6 seed beads here in silver, and I need 2 more. I need my 2 15/0s in that other color. And now what I'm going to do is go back up through those 2 seed beads that I'm sharing off of the first section that I made. And so when I pull that all together, I have 2 completed sections of the right angle weave. To add my next section, or my next little square, I'm going to pass through 2 of my 11/0s and the next 2 of my 11/0s. So I'm passing through what is essentially 2 sides of that square. And I'm stopping here before I pass through the 15/0s. And so now at this point, my square, I'm going to start by adding 2 of the 15/0s. So if I add those 2 15/0s, that will be the bottom of my box, or the top, depending on where you're looking at it. But I always want to make sure that I'm adding these 15/0s in this contrasting color, all on the same side of that box. So they're all going to line up and be next to each other. And then I have 4 more 11/0s to add. So I can just go ahead and pick up those 4 11/0s. and I'm going to pass through those 2 11-O's that I'm sharing from the box or square section that I previously made. And then you can see here I've added a 3rd section. Pass through the 15-O's and pass through the 11-O's, 2 11-O's, and these will be the 11-O's that we're sharing to add on the next section, the next little square. And we're just going to be repeating the steps that we've already taken. So here I'm going to pick up 4 of my 11-O's, and this will be so this here, the 2 seed beads that I'm sharing, if this is the first side of my box, I need 2 beads for each of the 2nd and the 3rd square. So 4 beads there. And then of course the 2 15-O's that I'm adding to be that bottom of the box and up through the 2 beads that I'm sharing. And once I pull this all together, I now have my 4th section. So we're going to continue in this fashion until we have a total of 20 right angle weave sections or squares. You can see here I'm back to having to pick up 2 of my 15-O's first, and then I'll pick up 4 of my 11-O's back through the 2 that I'm sharing, and so on. So go ahead and continue this until we get to 19. We're going to stop at 19, and then to make the 20th, we will actually link back up to the very first section or square of right angle weave that we made. So go ahead and continue with this right angle weave, making sure that your 15-O's are always on the same side. And once we get 19 done, we'll come back here and we'll go ahead and finish this this section of the ring up. Now that I've done 19 sections or little squares of right angle weave, I'm going to create my 20th by joining the 1st and the 19th. I have my thread here coming out of my 2 11-O's that I'm going to share, and then I'm going to pick up another 2 11-O's, and when I bring my first square around so that they meet up, I'm going to, let me get this tail thread out of the way. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go down through the 2 seed beads on the first little section I made that are sitting directly across from the seed beads that I'm coming out of. And what this will do once I pull my beads in is it'll bridge the gap there between my 1st and my 19th square with those 2 beads. And now coming down through those 2 beads that I shared on the first square, I'm going to then bridge the gap here with another 2 seed beads here. I'm going to use those 15s and then go back up through this side, through those 2 11-O's, and pull everything tight. So once you've got that pulled tight, you won't see a beginning and end, you'll just see a continuous round or circle here created by all those tiny little right angle weave boxes. I like to go through the beads in this section, in this particular little square, a couple times. So I'm going to go through just one more time here through the beads, and that way it just cinches everything up and make sure that I'm starting the second step here with everything exactly where it should be. And I also want to make note that you want to make sure as you're connecting the first and last section here that all of your 15-O's are in the center here. So they should all be making a circle in the center, and then your silver beads, your 11-O's, are all on the outside. You just want to make sure you don't get that twisted, because otherwise that's going to cause problems for you in the next step. The next step is going to be mostly focused on my 15-O's. So if I have any 11-O's, I can just push those to the side for right now. And I'm gonna need some more of my 15 O's. Get a couple more of those out. Your piece is going to be a little floppy, so don't worry about it. As we work with it, we'll tighten it up, we'll do some things to make it more structured, so don't worry about the floppiness right now. So find where your thread is coming out, and mine is coming out through the top of that 11-0. I want to follow my thread path, so the right angle weave path, and get my needle and thread to the 15 O's. So I'm just following that thread path. I'm going to pass through my two 15 O's. And here again, I'm going to work in a right angle weave pattern, but I'm not going to do the same squares where each side of my square had 2 beads. So here I'm going to be picking up 7 beads. 7 beads total. The section I'm doing now is going to be the bezel that covers the front and the back of my Rivoli. So the bezel is going to consist of the 2 seed beads that I've already added on here, the 2 15 O's that are already part of this section of my ring, as well as 3 beads on each side of the box and 1 bead on the other side of the box. So I'm going to have to add the 3 beads, and 1 bead. So 7 beads total. Coming out of 2 of my 15 O's here, I'm going to go ahead and just pick up those 7 beads all at once. And then I'm going to loop back around and go through the same 15 O's, so that when I pull, I'll have added that little right angle weave section. And this is a square, it looks a little bit more like a circle now, but I'm essentially adding that little right angle weave square onto those 2 15 O's. So remember I said that in this right angle weave, my box is going to have a side that consists of 3 15 O's. I'm going to pass up through those 3 15 O's. And I'm going to need to pick up another 1 seed bead for the top of my box and 3 seed beads for the side. So I'm only going to need to pick up 4 seed beads to complete this right angle weave box. I'm going to go through the 2 15 O's on the section next to where I'm working, and I'm going to pull my needle through so that I'm pulling it through so that it's facing the old section or the previous section. Go up through the 3 seed beads, the 3 15 O's that I'm sharing, through the 1 bead on top, that's going to be the top of that section, and down through the 3 beads on the other side. I'm going to move on to the next section here. I'm going to pass through the 2 seed beads on the bottom of the box that I'm creating, and that's the 2 seed beads that I'm sharing from this previous step that are attached to my silver beads. I'm going to pick up 3 beads for the side of the box or square. This really isn't a square shape, but it's still the right angle weave. So I've got the 3 beads for that side, and then I need another 1 bead for the top. And then remember here, I'm just going down through 3 beads. Always through 3 beads on the side here. Through the 2 beads at the very bottom that I'm sharing from that previous step that I did that are attached to the silver beads. And then up through the 3 beads that I'm sharing to create the next section. And we're going to continue until we get to the end. So again, just like we did on the first section, we're going to continue this until we do 19 following this, following these steps. And then the 20th one will be just like we did before. We're just going to connect the 1st and the 19th. So one more time here, coming out the top here, I'm going to pick up 1 bead for that top and 3 beads for the second, or for the side. I'm going to pass through the 2 beads that I'm sharing with the silver section that I made, up through the 3 beads that are going to be the side of the box, through the 1 bead that's going to be the top of my box, and then down through 3 beads here on this side of the right angle weave box. I'm going to pass through my 2 seed beads that are connected to the silver beads, three beads for my side, 1 bead for my top, and down through my 3 seed beads. So go ahead and continue, and we're going to work this, like I said, until we have our 19 sections. And then once we have those 19 sections done, we'll go ahead and connect the first and last to get our 20th section. So now you should have something that looks like this. I have all my sections here done in the 15-ohs except for my last section, and we're just going to connect the 1st and the 19th section that we made. Coming out of the top of the side here, my 3 15-ohs, I'm going to pick up just 1 15-oh, and then I'm going to go down the side of the section next to it through those 3 15-ohs. And I'm going to reinforce this here by going through the 2 seed beads at the base here, the 2 seed beads that were part of my first step there attached to the silver, up through the side, up through those 3 15-ohs on the side, and I'll go through that 15-oh that I just added. And all I'm doing here is going through those seed beads again to give this a little bit more structure and to pull everything nice and tight so I don't have any slack. And that is how we do the bezel for the top or the bottom of my Rivoli. So now I need to do this a second time. If I lay what I have here so far on top of my Rivoli, you can get a feel for what this is going to look like. So here I've laid it on top, so this is going to, we'll just call this the top side of my setting here. Coming out of my 15-ohs here. Now if your thread is already coming out of 2 of the 15-ohs that we started with that were attached to the silver, those 2 15-ohs that we picked up in that first step that we did, you can go ahead and start here, and we're just going to repeat the same steps that we just took to create this part of the bezel. So again, we're going to start off just like we did by picking up those 7 15-ohs, and then from there continue on by adding, just like we did, 19 sections, and then create that 20th section by just adding that 1 15-oh to connect the 19th and the first section. So go ahead here and create the whole second side of the bezel, and once we have that almost done, we will put our Rivoli in right before we cinch it all up and make it tight. So go ahead and create those 19 sections, and then I will meet back with you. We will take care of wrapping everything up here to make it nice and tight and adding in our Rivoli. I've now completed my 19 sections of that right angle weave, and I've done this exactly the same way as I did this back of the Rivoli bezel, the back or the front, however you want to look at it. So I'm going to have two sides of the bezel exactly the same. And I also want to point out that we're also using the same two seed beads here that we're connecting with our silver 11-ohs. So those are the same seed beads there. We went through those a couple different times there and attached the front and the back bezel to those beads. I'm now at the point where on my second, my front or my back, my second half of the bezel here, I'm now at the point where I just need to connect the first and the 19th section that I made. So to do that, just like I did on the last section, I'm going to pick up one 15-oh, and I'm going to pass through the three 15-ohs that are going to create the side of that box. Now before I pull too tight, I'm going to take my Rivoli and put it in the bezel here. So at this point, I haven't pulled everything too tight, so I can still fit that Rivoli in the bezel. The bezel still has enough give that I can do that. Now the bezel is in there on the front and the back there. I'm going to make sure I don't accidentally catch any of this bezel, any of my 15-ohs on the wrong side of that Rivoli. After everything is in place and it looks good, my Rivoli looks good, now I can start to cinch everything up so that it's going to hold the Rivoli in tighter. I'm going to trace my footsteps here and just follow my thread path and go up through my right angle weave here until I'm at the top here of that little box that I made. And I'm going to go through that one seed bead, that one 15-oh that was sitting by itself. Remember, that was the one little 15-oh that was like the top of the box. And it will be the one that's on the very inside here of our bezel. I'm going to pick up one more 15-oh and go to the next little section of right angle weave and through the one 15-oh at the very top of that section. And I'm going to pick up another 15-oh and then through the 15-oh from the next section. And I'm going to continue in this way, just connecting all of the 15-ohs that are at the very top or the very outer section or the very outer edge here of those right angle weave segments. And I'm connecting these with just one 15-oh in between. So I'm picking up one 15 and then going through the 15-oh attached to the right angle weave segment. Picking up one 15-oh and then going through the next one that's attached to the 15-oh or the right angle weave segment. And as I do this and I pull, you'll start to see the bezel take a little bit more shape here as you pull those 15-ohs inward, and you'll start to have it all kind of cinch up and pull tighter, and that will help hold that bezel. That'll help hold that bezel and that Rivoli in place. So I'm going to go around here and do this the whole way around, and then I'll do this on the back as well. So on the back and front here, we're just picking up one 15-oh and then going through the 15-oh from my right angle weave. Once we've done this on both sides, we'll be able to start embellishing with some crystals. After getting my bezel firmly in place and getting my Rivoli there in the center, what I'm going to do now is work on the embellishment on my silver beads here on the outside. So you can see here in my sample ring here, the embellishment looks like this, but then when I add the beads, I have this beautiful halo around my Rivoli in the center here. So this is what I'm going to be working on now, adding those 3mm crystals. I want my thread, so currently I have my thread coming out of two of my 15-ohs here that go all the way around the very edge of the bezel. And so from these two 15-ohs, I'm going to go up through two of my silver seed beads. And this is going to be the side of one of my right angle weave sections here. So your beads aren't going to sit perfectly, and that's okay, but I want to be coming out the top of a set of those 2 11-0s. I'm going to pick up one 3mm crystal, and then I'm going to hop over to the next side here. So it's the same side here. It's one of the sides that's sitting perpendicular to our crystal that's kind of facing outwards. I'm going to hop over to that next side and just go up through those 2 beads again so that my 3mm crystal crosses that little box section. And again, just going to pick up one 3mm crystal, and I'm going to go to the side next to where I'm working, the set of 2 seed beads, 2 11-0 seed beads, and just cross and add that 3mm crystal. So one more time here, coming out of the top of the set of 2 11-0s, pick up that 3mm crystal, move on to the side next to this, the set of 2 11-0 seed beads, and going the same direction, just go out the top there, pull tight, and you can see now my embellishment is growing bigger here, adding one of my crystals to each of these little right angle weave sections. So I'm going to continue all the way around here, and once I get to the end, I'm going to show you how I add a little strap here on the back so that you can use this as a ring. This step here is a bit optional, but I think it helps just finish off the piece and give you more of that sunburst or flower look. You can see on my sample here, I have these little points on the top of each crystal, and these points are here with my silver seed beads. So I'm going to show you how to do that embellishment now. I've just finished adding my last 3mm crystal, and I have my thread coming out of the 2 seed beads that I was using, that set of 2 seed beads that I was using to add those crystals. So what I have left here is all the way around the edge of my piece, I'm going to have these sets of 2 seed beads that were the top or the very outside edge of that little right angle weave box that I made. If you take your needle and just put your needle in those 2 beads, you can see that you can very easily just kind of pop them out and make them sit the way that you want them to, so that they're nice and even, they're not all wonky. Now, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to embellish onto these. So it's nice to have them kind of sitting the way that you want them to next to each other, so it's easy to see which bead you're going into and which bead you're going out of. So coming out of, like I said, I stopped here with my crystals, so I'm coming out of and coming out through the top of a set of 2 seed beads here. And I'm going to go through the first in that set of 2 seed beads that is on the very outside edge. I'm going to pick up one 11-0, and then I'm going to go down through that second seed bead. So I went up through the first, picked up an 11-0, and down through the second. And what that does is add that little, it looks like a little picot trim. You're just adding a 3rd seed bead in there, a seed bead sitting between the first and the second seed bead. And then what we're going to do here is we're not going to add anything into this little gap. We're just going to move right into our next seed bead. So we're going to go through the first seed bead of the next pair, pick up that one 11-0, and then down through the seed bead, the second seed bead in this pair, adding that 3rd bead, that 3rd seed bead in the center between them. And so in this fashion, we're going to continue around again the whole way around until we've done this 20 times and we've embellished each set of 2 seed beads with that 3rd seed bead between them. So one more time here, just go through that first seed bead from the outside to the inside, which will actually push the seed bead to the side a little bit. Pick up another 11-0, and we'll go through the second seed bead from the center to the outside, pushing it downwards, and it's really creating a little V between those two seed beads that already existed for that third seed bead to sit snugly inside there. So go ahead and continue with this until we get to the end, and then we'll go ahead and turn this into a ring. After completing the trim that we've added to the outside here, that little embellishment with the 11-0, I'm going to move on to the back side here, and I'll add a band or a strap to be the band of my ring. Now at this point, if you don't want to make it a ring, you can of course just leave it the way it is, and you can make it into a pendant, you can make it into a pair of earrings. This is a great component that you can use for lots of different types of jewelry. But I'm going to show you how to make it into a ring, because that's how I have really been enjoying wearing it on my finger here. I just finished my last bit of trim here, my last little embellishment here with my 11-0, and I'm going to take my needle and thread, and again, just anytime you need to bring your needle and thread to a different part of the project, just follow whatever thread path is already there. Just follow the way that the beads are connecting, and that way you won't have any extra thread showing, and it will just make everything look really nice. So I'm just, again, following my thread path here. I'm going to create the band off of my 15-0s that are in the very center here, that form this very center ring or circle of 15-0s. And again, I'm working on the back side of my component here. To do this, to add the strap or the band, I'm going to then just go through a few of these seed beads here. Now these are 15-0s, and I'm going to use 11-0s to create the band. So if I want to do a band with 3 11-0s thick, like the band on my ring here is, I'm going to go through 4 of my 15s, and that will just be about the same thickness. I need some 11-0s, which, oh, I already got my 11-0s out. I was thinking ahead here. And I'm going to use this a simple ladder stitch to do this. I'm going to pick up my 3 11-0s and then back through those 4 15-0s here that are my bezel. And quick ladder stitch here, just go back through those 3 seed beads. I'm going to pick up another 3 11-0 seed beads, loop around here, and attach them so that my set of 3 seed beads that I just added is now sitting next to the 3 that I previously added. I'm going to go through these seed beads again that I just added so that I'm coming out the right location here to add on to the end of what will essentially just be a long line of these little columns of 3 seed beads. So another 3 seed beads here, down through the 3 existing seed beads here that I already have, and then back up through the ones that I just added. I'm going to continue this until I get the strap to the length that I want, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach it on this side, on the opposite side of my bezel, and I'll reinforce it and tie it off. So once I get my bezel or my strap or band here complete and to the length that I want it, I'll go ahead and show you how I finish that. I've now completed my band here. I've completed it to the length that I need it to be. So now at this point, I'm just going to bring it to the opposite side of my bezel on the back here. and make sure that you line it up here so that you have it, so that you don't have the band twisted. We want to make sure that we don't get it twisted as we connect it on the other side. Make it nice and flat, and just bring it over to where you'd like to connect it on the other side of your bezel. And using the same technique, we're just going to go down through, we're going to pass through about 4 15-ohs here. Oh, there we go. Through my 3 seed beads again. And we'll go through this one more time here. I want to make sure that this connection is nice and secure, since this is where my ring will be getting the most wear and tear. If you use a size 11 or 12 needle, you should be able to go through the 15-0 more than once or twice here. You should be able to go through it a few times and just really reinforce that connection. So at this point, I'm essentially done. I just need to tie off and use my thread burner to burn any extra thread. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a little knot in this and tie that off. The other thing you can do before you go ahead and finish this is if any of the ladder stitch is a little loose, you can take any extra thread that you still have on your needle and just work your way back through that ladder stitch, back and forth, reinforcing that and pulling those beads just a little tighter together. So that's an option for you as well if you feel that you need to do that. And I always enjoy, or I always appreciate doing this because it does make the band fit a little snugger. It pulls all those beads just closer together. So I like going back through here, just up and down, pulling things tighter and closer together. So now I will go ahead and tie this off and my ring will be completely done. I will have a nice matching ring to this one. And yeah, maybe I'll do like friendship rings. Maybe I'll give one to me and one to my friend. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below and let us know your thoughts. You can also subscribe to our channel to be notified as soon as we have more beading tutorials out that you will enjoy probably just as much as you enjoyed this one.